So I guess I will no longer be sleeping tonight because I just got stuck in this comment section. The original video is about a creepy voicemail that this person got, so naturally others started sharing their stories in the comments, and let me just read you a few of these. Now this first one is a little long, but just bear with me. When I was in like 8th grade, my teacher got a call on the classroom phone, like one the school office uses to contact teachers. She had it on speaker so the whole class could hear. She answered and said hello, but no one responded. She kept asking hello for a few seconds, and then suddenly there was this blood-curdling scream through the speaker. It sounded almost robotic, like it wasn't fully human. Then the call abruptly hung up. The entire class went silent. We were all completely freaked out. My teacher tried calling back, but nothing happened. After a minute, she kind of brushed it off and continued teaching, even though everyone was still on edge. A few minutes later, the phone rang again. She answered, still on speaker. This time, all we could hear were footsteps on gravel. In the background, there was a man laughing, just laughing. Then the call hung up again. At that point, my teacher immediately put the classroom on lockdown. We sat there waiting, expecting something to happen, but after a while, the calls just stopped. She eventually called the office and asked who had been calling the classroom phone, and they said nobody called us. On my 18th birthday, I got a voicemail from a blocked number. No ring, just a random voicemail. It had a lot of static, and it was a man's voice that sounded distressed and said, "In 12 years, don't follow the yellow truck." There was more, but was too much static to hear. My 30th birthday is next month, marking the 12th year since then. I've tried to find the voicemail, but it's gone, like it never existed. When I was about 13, I kept getting calls from an unknown number over and over again at like 1 in the morning. It got to a point where I just turned my phone off. When I woke up the next morning, I had 2 voicemails. One sounded like a room full of little kids talking loudly. A school cafeteria is as close as I can come to describe it. The second was the same, but a noticeably clearer voice, also a little kid voice, said, "When are you coming back home?" Not too long ago, my uncle got a call asking for me, which was weird because we don't even talk and he doesn't have my number. When he asked who it was, the guy said, "Are you gonna give me her number or not?" and hung up. When my uncle called back, the man just sat there breathing heavy, then said, "So, do you have her number?" and hung up. After that, 2 black Cadillacs with tinted windows started sitting outside my job. I work until midnight. When I'd leave, one would drive off and another would follow me farther toward my house each day. One night I pulled over in a dark spot with my lights off to let them pass, but they stopped and looked around. After that, it stopped. One time, my grandma got a voicemail, and it was just a woman crying and saying her name. She didn't know the voice, and when we called it back, it said the number didn't exist.
Okay, this story from one of my followers is the definition of creepy. I'm not sure if she wants to remain anonymous, so I'm just gonna leave her name out of it. She said that this happened to her last year. She wants to make note that she's always had very vivid and scary dreams and also predictive dreams. For example, when she was 14 years old, she dreamt about the World Trade Center attacks 4 days prior. To set up the scene, she says she has 2 big dogs that always sleep in the bed with her. So one morning, her husband gets up and leaves for work. She said she didn't have to get up for another hour, so she stayed in bed with the 2 dogs. All of a sudden, she's awoken to the sound of strange tapping on the bed. And she said it was pretty consistent, so at first, she assumed it was just her dog wagging its tail or something. She said she could feel that the tapping was coming down on the bed. She was a little bit confused as to what they would be wagging their tails about, so she looks towards the end of her bed, which is where the noise was coming from, and guys, it was not her dogs. She said at the foot of her bed was a young boy about 7 years old in a red jacket with his hood up. He had black hair kind of matted and stuck to his face, kind of like it was wet, and then where his eyes should be were just black holes. And he was just sitting there, tapping his hand up and down on the bottom of her bed. She was frozen in fear, and she said she felt pure evil emanating from this child. Okay, so as she's staring at this child, he starts to look down, and as his head goes down, it rolls off of his body, falls off of him, and then he disappears. So in complete shock, she yells out, "What the F?" But then all of a sudden, she's coming out of a dream. It was just a dream. Or so she thought. So she said it took like 10 minutes for her to calm down, and then she tried to go back to bed for the remaining 30 minutes that she had left. So then as soon as she closes her eyes, she says she swears that she hears her daughter walk into her bedroom and say, "Mom." So she opens her eyes, but her daughter's not there. Nobody's there. Then she closes her eyes again, trying to go back to sleep, and within 1 minute, now she's feeling a tapping sensation on her head, kind of like somebody's patting it. So after that, she's like, screw this, I'm getting up, I'm gonna walk this stress off. And she, in that moment, also knew that that boy she thought was a dream wasn't just a dream. She said she really did feel that evil presence about it, and she will never forget, to this day it still bothers her, looking at its dark black holes for eyes, and as its head nodded down and rolled off its body before it disappeared. Along with all the other things that happened right after, she knows that there was something to that, more than just a dream. She says she knows it sounds crazy, but it's 100% true. Her own husband doesn't believe her, so it feels nice to be able to tell the community that might get it. So let her know in the comments your thoughts. And don't forget to follow for more creepy story time.
So I made a post that said, tell me your scariest paranormal experience, and I read the story and I felt like it just needed its own video. This is coming from Amanda S. Bobo. I hope I am not mispronouncing your name, and if I am so sorry. I'm not scared of spirits, so my story to me did not scare me, but I guess to others it would. I can see and feel spirits since I was 3. I've been able to see shadow people and all that, but here's my story of the very first time I'd seen my very first spirit. It was 1984, I was 3. My Aunt Judy was pregnant with twins and she was almost full term. She had very bad asthma and lived in an apartment building that was 2 blocks from the hospital. She was on the 3rd floor, no elevator either. She had an asthma attack so bad that her inhaler was not helping, or it was empty. She called 911 and started trying to walk down the steps to the front for the ambulance when they came by. By the time she got to the bottom, she passed out and was laying there. My grandma, her mom, was with her at the time, but she was very overweight and older, and neither could drive, so they had no car. It took the ambulance over 30 minutes to get to her. By the time they finally came, my Judy and the twins were pronounced dead. We had them take the babies out and put them in her arms when she was buried. She was only in her 30s. 3 days after the funeral, I was back home in my bed late at night. I couldn't sleep. I was only 3 years old. I was laying on my side staring down the hallway, just trying to fall asleep, when all of a sudden I felt drawn to look past the hall to the end. I started hearing a humming. I knew the hum, but I couldn't really place it. Then I started seeing it look like glitter floating in the air, and my Aunt Judy was standing there, baby in each arm, but she wasn't really touching the ground. She was talking and smiling while gliding to me, but her mouth never moved. She said, "Mandy, don't be scared." I said, "I'm not, Aunt Rudy." I couldn't pronounce Judy at the time. She said, "Good. And it's your time now. You will know. Now roll over." And I did. She floated to me and above me, smiled sweetly and said, "Remember, never be afraid." And she drifted down and disappeared into me. No joke. I literally have chills. This is the second time I've read this and I got chills yet again. Anyway, what do you guys think?
I saw my dead grandfather in the forest while camping. Scary story time. Me, my dad, and my 2 other siblings decided to go camping because that's what we do every summer in June. That's just what we like to do. It's just a ritual that we like to keep up with. We stayed in these forests for about 3 days, and that's normally what we do. But the last night of us staying there, shit just started hitting the fan. Everyone else fell asleep, but I was still awake because I always had problems falling asleep. I just always have. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to get out of this tent. I'm going to walk around. I also have to pee. Try to get some energy out, pretty much. So I'm walking, and then I hear footsteps, and I hear, like, someone trying to tell me something. And I'm like, who's there? I shine my light, and I see a figure behind a tree. I'm like, who are you? And he steps out from the tree, and it's my grandfather. I'm like, Grandpa? And I start crying, and he's like, and he doesn't say anything, just a blank face, and he's just standing completely still. And then he raises his hand and points behind me, and I turn around, and there is a tall figure with big black eyes and a smile that's like up to here. And I'm like, oh hell no. So I start running back to the tent. I wake my father and my 2 brothers, and I'm like, we gotta get the fuck out of here. And I tell them everything that was going on, and they didn't believe me. Until the tent started being played with, and my dad's like, oh my gosh, someone is outside of our tent. So my dad gets out of the tent, and I'm crying. I'm like, no, don't leave. Like, there's some creature, demon out there. And my dad's like, shut up. I'm gonna see what's going on. And he thought it was just a couple teenagers messing with us, but no, my dad sees the dark gray figure with the big eyes, and my dad was like, oh, we gotta go. We get in the truck and we leave, and we don't ever go back, and we don't ever see them again. And then I tell my dad, I was like, listen, I saw Grandpa and he warned me about the creature. And my dad started crying. He was like, we put your grandpa's ashes in those woods because that's where he would take us to go camping when he was a kid. But that's it. Damn.
Can we show him the older homestead?
Yeah, let's go. As you know?
No, it's not. No, it's not. Was that you?
Yeah, that's on either side.
It went to both.
Yeah.
Room 113. I'm a sophomore here at Stonewood College, and every year it's a tradition to tell the freshmen the story of Room 113, about the strange disappearance of a girl named Lila Turner, that 20 years ago, Lila raved about a mysterious dorm room that only she could see, Room 113. No one believed her. They said she went mad, obsessed with the room. And then on one rainy night, she walked into Room 113 and vanished forever. Ooh. Last year I was told the story. I and most people dismiss the story as an urban legend, just another college tale designed to give the freshmen the chills. Well, this year, I get to tell the freshmen and pass on the tradition. One Friday night, my friends and I gathered in the old common room of Dormitory Hall B, sharing scary stories over snacks and cheap beer, with some freshmen, of course. It was right here, in this very building, I said with a dramatic flair, pointing to the hallway. They said she went mad because no one believed her. Room 113 was all she ever talked about. And then she just disappeared. My friends giggled as we saw the freshman eyes widen, the fluorescent lights overhead flickering ever so slightly, adding to the atmosphere. Does 113 exist? A freshman asked, eyes wide as ever, waiting for me to reassure that it was all a myth. Many have searched for 113, but they all come to a dead end at 112. But hey, who knows? Maybe you'll too go crazy and get to see 113, I said. Ending the night and heading back to my dorm room with my head held high, I felt good carrying on the tradition. Felt like I did my civil duty, I don't know, as a college student. Maybe I should have just kept my mouth shut. Then I wouldn't be in this situation. Who knows? As I turned the corner to my dorm room hall, that's when I saw it. A door that shouldn't have been there, nestled right at the other end of the hall, and a rusty plaque that read 113. My stomach dropped and I froze in my tracks, my eyes locked at the sight. It was a bright red door with chipped paint and a tarnished doorknob. It was unmistakable. That door was not supposed to be there. All the other dorm room doors were this light cream color on either side. I blinked and it was gone. The door was gone. Nothing but an empty wall at the end of the hall. I let out a short laugh of relief and I shook my head. Damn, no more cheap beer for me, I said, and I hurried my ass back to my room and I locked the door behind me. The following days were a blur of late night study sessions and social gatherings, but that image, the image of the door lingered, nagging at the back of my mind. I didn't mention it to anybody. I mean, I would have sounded crazy, and I was drunk. Let's be honest. So, and it was a flicker of the light. Maybe it was an illusion. I don't know. It was a one-time thing, I thought. But then I saw it again. I was heading to the library one afternoon when I turned down the hallway leading to the stairs, and there it was, room 113, standing ominously against the wall. It was in a completely different place than the first time. My ear began ringing at the sight, and this time This time it was closer than before, a few feet away from me. I don't know why, but something compelled my body. My mind was saying run, but my body started making its way towards the door. I reached out, internally screaming and begging my body to pull away. But just as my fingers brushed the knob, someone called my name. I jumped back, falling on my ass, heart racing, gasping for air. Just like that, the door was gone. My friend Sarah came around the corner and saw me sitting on my ass, staring at a blank wall. You good? Catching my breath, I told her what just happened. She couldn't tell if I was joking or if I was being serious, but all I knew is there was no point in arguing and trying to convince her. So I just pretended to laugh, hoping that if I just ignored and pretended that what just happened didn't happen, that it actually didn't happen. Fake it till you make it, right? But ignoring it got harder. As the weeks passed, the sightings became more frequent. Sometimes it was just a glimpse at the end of the hall. Other times I'd see the door right outside my dorm room, waiting, always there. And every time I would have to fight the urge to go towards it. Soon it was all I could think about. I stopped sleeping. My dreams were filled with endless corridors and that awful, awful image of that red door. I couldn't hide it anymore. My friends started to notice me just staring at empty walls, my dark circles, my jumpiness. They grew worried. I mean, who wouldn't? And I would catch them whispering about me. They treated me like some sort of wounded puppy, probably with the same condescending pity that Lila Turner must have faced 20 years ago. I knew what they were thinking, that I was losing it, okay? I'm not stupid. Days went by and the door wouldn't stop pursuing me. I think I reached a point where I stopped avoiding it and I started searching for it. Then one day I met up with my friends at the library and they were whispering about me again. And well, I'm not proud of it, but I crashed out and I crashed out badly. And I screamed in front of a room filled with people. I'm not crazy, and I know what you're thinking, so wipe that stupid "I feel sorry for her" look off your ugly, bitchy faces. I couldn't believe I just said that to my best friends. I grabbed my things and I aggressively pushed open the library doors, making my way back outside, heading to my dorm room building. It started pouring rain, and so I became soaked walking back. Stressed, my tears started streaming down my face, but the rain just washed it away. I finally made it back to my building. And as I turned the corner of my dorm room hall, I froze in my tracks, my wet clothes dripping on the carpet. There it was again, right at the end of the hall, exactly like the first time I saw it. Room 113. Anger overcame my fear, and I sprinted towards the door, heart hammering in my chest. Without a second thought, I grasped the cold doorknob, and I pushed open the door, and I stepped inside. The room was small and dark. It was barely lit by this dim light on the ceiling. And the room had this old, ugly floral wallpaper that was peeling and showcasing the mold growing underneath. A musty smell filled my lungs. As I looked around, inspecting the room, I noticed that on the peeling wallpaper there was something written underneath. I take a step closer to examine, and that's when I read in frantic handwriting, "We've been waiting for you." The words made my stomach sink and turn, and I quickly turned to leave, but was met with terror. The door was gone. I paused for a second in disbelief. No, 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 no. Panic surged through me. I turned around and around and around, hoping that the door was maybe on the other side, but was only met with the empty walls. I screamed and I screamed, pounding my fist against the wall, pleading for help, pleading for a way out. But I was alone. I fell to my knees in silence, and I crawled to the corner of the room, and I just stared at the emptiness. There was nothing. Nothing, no walls, no door, just a suffocating silence. Hours passed. I stopped counting. I'd cry myself to sleep from exhaustion and over again, and every time I would wake up, I'd be hit with my new reality. There's no way out. And that's when I noticed. That's when I noticed the walls. Every time I blinked, it seems as if the walls were moving in closer and closer, ever so slightly, millimeter at a time, barely noticeable. But I noticed. They were moving and they were closing in. I had to survive. I couldn't go out like this, I thought to myself. In a fit of rage, I stood up and I took hold of a peeling piece of wallpaper and I screamed, "Let me out, goddammit!" As I tore it from the wall with such force it caused me to fall back on my ass. And that's when I caught a glimpse of more writing. I paused for a second, looking around the room at all the peeling pieces. I shot up and I ran towards the wall, and it peeled it some more and revealed the words, "Please stay." My eyes scanned the words back and forth, and that's when I thought to myself, there's something underneath the wallpaper. I started frantically peeling, revealing more and more writing as I went. The writing was all along the lines of, "Don't leave us, stay. You're meant to be here. Join us, stay, please don't leave." As I started peeling the last wall, that's when I saw the corner of what appeared to be a door and light seeping through. I peeled faster and faster, and I could feel as if the room itself was angry at me. I could feel it grunt and rumble with each piece I peeled. And I was right. There was a door. My way out. As I reached for the knob, my hand felt empty. There was no knob. Panic creeping in yet again, hyperventilating. I began to use my fingernails to try to pry it open, breaking nail after nail. And then I heard a creak. Only one more tug and I knew it would open. As I took my bloody fingers to the door once more, I felt something grab a hold of me from the back. As I looked behind me, I was met with a nightmare. It was my own self. "Don't leave," it said. Sheer terror in my eyes. I didn't think twice. I pry open the door and throw myself through, falling to the floor of my own dorm room. I look back behind me and I see myself, a sad expression across her face. She takes a step back inside the room, and then the door to room 113 slams shut and disappears right before me. As I sat there on the floor, I began to cry and laugh. A mix of emotions ran through me. Once I gathered myself together, I didn't think twice. I packed a small bag and I left college that day. It's been over a year now. I still sometimes see it in the corner of my eye, room 113. I catch it in between glances, and I can't help but feel some sort of emptiness. Maybe I left a piece of myself in that room that day, but I can't help but miss it. Look, I don't know why room 113 exists, and I don't know its purpose. But maybe that's my purpose. Maybe I was meant to stay in that room. Maybe I was meant to never leave.
I want to go back. I have to. I'm going back. I have to go back. I have to go back. Back to room 113. Good night.
What the fuck was that? Bro!
What's going on around you?
I don't know. I'm frozen. I am frozen.
Did the window
Sean.
break?
Tonight's story is extra scary, so I decided to wear my PJs so I could have just a little bit of comfort. So with that being said, grab your favorite tea and settle in, and let me tell you another scary story about Appalachia, because of course, this is Tea After Midnight. As always, so good. This story was sent to me by Anonymous. I've lived in the Appalachian Mountains my whole life, and about a year ago, me and my friend, who I'll call E, saw something neither her nor I can explain. She had slept over at my house after school because her and my parents were hanging out at her house until late. We always loved going on walks late at night. So like usual, me and her had put on our shoes and left the house at around 10 p.m. To paint a picture, I live about 10 minutes from any other houses, and woods surround most of my house. There's a long trail we walk on that's very beautiful during the day, but at night you can't see much because the trees block almost any light that can get in. The second I closed my back door, I felt this sense of unease that I've never felt before. But E seemed perfectly fine. Like usual, we walked to the start of the trail, and we're about 5 minutes into our walk when I hear something following us in the trees to my left. It was big with heavy steps, walking in a way like it was trying to be quiet, but couldn't. I look over at E, and she had this horrified look on her face that made my stomach drop. She was the only one with a flashlight, so she pointed it into the trees, and we saw nothing. We instantly turn around to walk back to my house because we've seen the horror movies and know Appalachia's rules. Ian and I started walking, and the steps in the trees kept up with our pace, following us from a distance. We start sprinting back to my house, and I was so horrified all I could hear was my heartbeat pounding in my ears. I was ahead of E by a few feet, but eventually she caught up to me. When I looked over at her in the woods, I saw this tall, slender thing about 15 feet away from E, running. Once her and I made it home, we locked the door, shut all the blinds, and instantly started hysterically crying. We sat together for about an hour in the corner of my living room, not saying a word, until I picked up the courage to crawl up to the window and peep out at the backyard. There was absolutely nothing. Once I told E this, she slowly started calming down and told me what she saw. She said when we were running, she looked to her left and saw this tall, black, extremely skinny figure with a long head running directly next to her. E and I never went to sleep that night. We stayed up in my bed all night with every light on in the house. I haven't shared this story with anyone but my mother and father in fear that people will call me crazy. E did the same and feels the same way. Since that incident, I've refused to go anywhere near the trails and only leave my house when necessary. There is another part to this story. I'm writing a follow-up to my story because last night I saw it again. Last night at around 2 a.m., I went downstairs to grab a snack like I usually do. My downstairs layout is when you walk down the steps, to your right is my living room and kitchen, and there are windows everywhere. Ever since the incident, my parents bought blackout curtains for every window that lines the walls to the backyard. There's a big glass door that usually has blinds to cover it too, but last night it wasn't shut. I went to the kitchen absolutely oblivious to the door because I was on my phone, but when I was passing it, I heard something scream in the woods. I froze, paralyzed with fear, and when I looked out the window, I saw it again. About 20 feet away in the woods, standing halfway behind a tree next to the trail. But this time, I noticed a malicious smile it had on its head where a face should be. I couldn't move. All I could do was stand there until a few seconds later when I instinctively fell to the ground and crawled into a corner of my kitchen. I screamed for my parents and my mother came running down the hall with my father barreling down behind her. I tried to explain, but with my crying, I could only get out the words, "He's back." My father instantly understood and went out into the backyard.
He came back about a minute later, claiming he saw nothing. I'm not even sure if I want to be writing this right now. I feel like I spoke it back into existence sending the last email. The only times I've seen it were yesterday and a year ago when it all started. I cannot get its smile out of my head. I genuinely couldn't imagine seeing something like that once, but let alone twice. As soon as I read the description of what they saw, my mind immediately went to the rake. I am going to put a picture in here just for reference, so if you don't want to see that, scroll away now. But this is what my mind immediately went to when I read the description of what they saw. If this is truly what they saw, I would be absolutely terrified. Oh, but don't forget it came back a second time, and that time it was smiling at them through the window. I am absolutely terrified, and I genuinely couldn't imagine seeing that. But that does conclude this episode of Tea After Midnight. If you have any personal scary stories you want to share, I would love to read them, and they do not have to be about the Appalachian Mountains. It can be about any scary story that you've experienced. You can email me at this email on the screen or the email that's going to be in the caption of this video. But as always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have the best night, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.